Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. It is EDH Commander Thursday, and in today's video, we are going to begin a deck building series around a classic card from Modern Horizons 2. It's Garth One-Eye in an artifact token build. What's up, MTG BC, baby? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. You are here for another deck building series, and this time, oh, do we have a doozy. As you see before you, we are going to build an artifact token deck around Garth One-Eye. It is a brand new creature from Modern Horizons 2. It is a 5-color build, so Garth is a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green on a 5/5 body. It is a human wizard. And Garth is a very, very interesting and intriguing creature because we can tap Garth and we can choose a card name that hasn't been chosen from among Disenchant Braingeyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. Create a copy of the card with the chosen name, and we may cast the copy. So, although we are not going to include anything that we can infinitely utilize Garth is going to be there as the forefront of this artifact token build. And let's be honest, we are going to get some Black Lotuses in play. All right, so now that we know what we're going to do, we want to include in the first parts of this deck building series, we want to include some creatures that are going to create some artifact tokens. We want to get the best bang for our buck with respect to what these tokens are going to do. We're looking for all tokens that are artifacts, nothing more and nothing less. So the first dozen spells that we're going to include are going to create artifact tokens in many different ways and in many different shapes and forms. So as long as we're all on board right now, here is episode 1 of Garth One-Eye 5-color artifact tokens. Spell number 1, Regavan, Nimble Pilfer, another Modern Horizons 2 card. It is a legendary monkey pirate for 2 and a 1 for 1 red mana. And when Regavan, of course from Kari Zev fame, whenever Regavan deals combat damage to a player, we create a treasure token and we exile the top card of that player's library. And then until end of turn, we may cast that card. We will be able to cast every single card from our opponent's library because not only are we in a 5-color deck, but we are going to heavily feature treasure tokens. In fact, I do believe the treasure tokens is the most popular artifact token of this entire build. And if we don't want to put out Regavan there and have him sitting out there waiting for a turn to come all the way back around so that we can turn him sideways and he can go pilfer something, well, he also has the dash mechanic. For 1 and a red, we can cast this spell, and if we do, it gains haste, and at the beginning of our next end step, we can return that bad boy right back to our hand. So Regavan's going to come in, it's going to slide over, it's going to deal some combat damage, it's going to create us a treasure token, exile the top card of an opponent's library, and then we're going to cast that bad boy with the rest of our mana or other treasure tokens. Regavan is spell number 1 of this Garth One-Eye artifact token build. Number 2, Dockside Extritionist. 1 in a red, it's a goblin pirate. Boy, we got a lot of pirates so far. Maybe we should call this Garth Pirates, right? All right, so this isn't a 2/1, it's a 1/2, and when it ETBs, we create X treasure tokens where X is equal to the number of artifacts and enchantments our opponents control. This is EDH, folks. This is Commander. There's going to be enchantments and artifacts all over the place. Artifact lands, artifact creatures, enchantment lands, enchantment creatures, standalone artifacts, standalone enchantments. Dockside Extritionist is going to come down and create a ton of treasure tokens for us. And he is spell number 2 in this Garth build. Spell 3 is going to be an enchantment. It's Monologue Tax, 2 and a white. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, we create a treasure token. I like this ability because our opponents have no way around preventing us from doing this outside of straight removing Monologue Tax from the battlefield or having the insight and awareness to not cast a second spell during each turn. And let's face it, this is, again, EDH Commander. Players want to cast them their spells, and Monologue Tax is going to be right there helping us collect all of those treasure tokens for Garth One-Eye. Next up, we're going to Commander Legends, taking a break from treasure tokens in order to create a different type of artifact token, and we are going to talk about Toggo, Goblin Weaponsmith. 2 and a red on a 2/2 Goblin Artificer. This pretty much has landfall. It doesn't say it, but it has it. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we are going to create a colorless equipment artifact token named Rock. Okay? And this equipment has tap 1, tap, sacrifice Rock when it's equipped onto a creature, and this creature will deal 2 damage to any target, and the equip cost to do so is 1. So we have Toggo in play, we put a land into play. We create a token called Rock. And if we equip this onto a creature for 1, we have the ability to shock a target if we sacrifice Rock. This is going to help us gain artifact tokens through one of the fundamental aspects of the game, just getting a land into play. And it doesn't even have to be from our land for the turn. It can be from any spells that we include in the deck later. As long as lands are entering the battlefield, Toggo is going to trigger, and it's going to create our Rock equipment artifact tokens. That's number 4. Number 5, we are going to now talk about a different type of artifact token, and that's going to be a clue, and that comes from Tireless Tracker from, you guessed it, Shadows over Innistrad. 2 and a green on a 3/2 human scout body, which also has landfall, and whenever a land comes into play under our control, we get to investigate, and to investigate, we create a clue artifact token, which is tap 2 and sacrifice the clue, and we can draw a card. All right. As an additional bonus for Tireless Tracker, whenever we sacrifice a clue, we can put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Tracker. So having the tracker in this deck gives us an additional type of artifact token to include as we continue to build on that theme. Same mana value, same mechanic, different type of, same mana value, same mechanic, different type of result, and one that we get to choose. And again, we're going to have another Modern Horizon card, and that's Tireless Provisioner. 2 and a green on a 3/2 elf scout, not a human scout, with the landfall mechanic, except this doesn't create clue tokens. This creates food or treasure. We get to choose. Think about that for a second. You get to pick whether you want a food or a treasure. And this is only an uncommon. Just having the ability to create a treasure token seems like this should at least be a rare to me. I don't know. Maybe that's just I'm overvaluing this card, or I think this card is better than it is. But if Tireless Tracker down there creates the clues that you have to invest 2 mana in and sacrifice to draw a card, and this is giving us free mana, this is kind of like, it's got shades of Lotus Cobra, but it's on a bigger body, and then we get to keep those treasure tokens for when we need to use them, as opposed to losing the mana during steps and phases, dependent on when the lands enter the battlefield, secondary to having, Lotus Cobra in play. Tireless Provisioner, sneaky, sneaky good in this deck. Food or treasure. Speaking of food, speaking of treasures, and speaking of clues, we're going again to Modern Horizons 2. Fey Offering, our second enchantment here. We have 2 and a green. At the beginning of each end step, please note that's not just our end step. At the beginning of each end step, if we've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, we create a clue, a food, and a treasure token. 3 different treasure tokens as long as we cast a creature and a non-creature spell within the same turn. This just sits out there and generates value for us in a deck that wants to consistently create artifact tokens. More artifact tokens on the way, and again, we're going back to the investigate mechanic. with Search the Premises, another MH2 card. This is another enchantment, our third so far. For 3 and a white, whenever a creature attacks us or a planeswalker we control, investigate. We have to pay attention to what this card isn't saying. What this card is not saying is whenever one or more creatures attacks. This is whenever a single solitary creature attacks us or a planeswalker we control, this triggers and gives us a clue token. If we're attacked with 4 creatures, we create 4 clue tokens. Again, similar to Fey Offering, this sits out on the battlefield and just generates value and value, strictly based on one of the other fundamental parts of the game, attacking players. Search the Premises will create us an oodle of clue tokens. All right, now we're going to get down to the last third of these first 12 spells, and we're going to talk about a different type of artifact token. Now we're going to get into some creature artifact tokens, and that's going to come from Sihili the Gifted. 2 blue and a red, she ETBs with 4 loyalty counters. We can +1 her to create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Very good, that's what we want. +1 for her other ability, and the next spell we cast this turn will cost 1 less to cast for each artifact we control as we cast it. So as we compile all of these different artifact tokens, whether they're clues, food, rocks, treasure, servo, +1 Sihili second ability, and we're going to drastically reduce the mana value of the next spell we cast. And if for any reason we can -7 her, for each artifact we control, create a token that's a copy of it. Those tokens gain haste, and we exile the tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So if we have an oodle of treasures, imagine doubling our treasures and then using them to cast something else. Sihili the Gifted is spell number 9 of the first dozen in this Garth One-Eye artifact token build. Next up, and again, a different type of artifact token, same idea with a planeswalker though. This is for Tesserat Artifice Master. 3 and 2 blue with 5 loyalty counters when it ETBs. We can +1 to create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So Sihili brings the servos, Tesserat brings the Thopters with flying. We can 0 Tesserat to draw a card. If we control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. In this build, if we don't have at least 3 artifact tokens sitting out on the battlefield in order to draw 2 cards from Tesserat's second ability, then we're probably not having a good game. Finally, the -9 is we get an emblem with, at the beginning of our end step, we search our library for a permanent card and put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle our library. Tesserat is going to be awesome in cluttering up the battlefield with 1/1 flying Thopter tokens, and it's also going to act as a ridiculous card draw engine because we're going to 0 him to draw 2 cards. Amazing, amazing back-to-back planeswalkers in a deck that just wants to focus on artifact tokens. All right, we've got 2 cards left for our first dozen, and I hope you're getting as excited about this build as I am, because we are going to do some magnificent things with this deck. Spell number 11 of the first dozen, Brass's Bounty. This Rivals of Ixalan Beauty is a sorcery for 6 and a red. A little pricey. However, the payoff for this deck is going to be monumental. For each land we control, we create a treasure token. 6 lands, 6 treasures. 13 lands, 13 treasures. In a way, as long as each land that we have on the battlefield taps for mana, this allows us to double that amount of mana, in the form of treasure tokens, of course. But Brass's Bounty is another one of those spells that wants to do what it can to give us those artifact tokens. Brass's Bounty, a great spell at number 11. And our 12th and last spell to be added to this first dozen is from the newest set during this deck building series, and that is Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And we're going back to treasures, and we're going to do it the right way with 1 copy of Old Gnawbone. 5 and double green for a 7/7 flying dragon. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. Again, similar to what we were talking about with Search the Premises, it's what it's not saying that we really need to pay attention to. This is whenever each individual creature deals combat damage, we're creating that many treasure tokens. So if we send in 3 creatures for a total of 11 combat damage and they get through to the player, 11 treasure tokens are being created under our control. Old Gnawbone, you are going to be a perfect fit in this deck. In a deck that cares about creating artifact tokens, Old Gnawbone, you got a place with us, baby. All right, MTG BC, I am curious. I am excited to hear what you think about this deck build so far. Let me know what your suggestions are, what your visions are in the comments section below. We got Garth One-Eye in a 5-color artifact token build. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic.